coach thing and the hard slap on the back. And I've had coaches say he can be kind of an awkward guy, and my takeaway is I'm awkward. Whatever, I can't be. But at Stanford, Niners, and Michigan, the one thing he always brings, his team becomes the toughest in the conference eventually. And I feel bad for TCU. I think it's a good matchup. You've never really wavered on Harbaugh. I don't think you have. Have you?
No, I don't. I mean, I remember, I might have been on the train before you were. I still remember Gus and I called his first game at Michigan. You remember that? You had just come over.
Yeah.
And we were doing a pregame show at Utah, and they were about to play that Utah team. Now, if my memory serves me correct, Utah ended up winning that game. But that was the Jake Rudock Michigan team, and I said on that show that I thought that year Michigan would end up being a top 10 team.
And they were.
And I felt that way because of what you just said. Like, they will eventually become the toughest team in the conference at the line of scrimmage, and he's going to do that or die trying, like he said in press conferences before. The bottom line is that this Michigan team this year is a team that does not panic when they're in close games because they know they'll eventually wear you down. Michigan's got, right now, the best offensive line in the country. They've got a great defensive line, and it is the reason, Colin, why they're such a good second-half team. They are the best second-half team in the entire country. Their point differential is plus 200 and I think, 6 in second half of football games, and that's a bad matchup for TCU.
Yeah.
The reason is because TCU relies on coming back in the second half so often. They've got 5 second-half comebacks. I don't think that's going to be afforded them because the terms of the game generally are played with the Michigan offensive and defensive line, and that's what eventually wins out.
You know, if there was a single quarterback in college football this year that will not go in the first round but will end up having a nice career, I would guess it would be Max Duggan, the kid at TCU. My guess is he could end up starting, being a backup. But when I watch him play, I'm like, he kind of moves. He's got an arm. There's a lot of chutzpah. I like it. What do you make of him in this offense? Because the way to beat Michigan, if you could get lucky here, is you get a crazy shootout with a hot quarterback. What do you make of him?
That's right. Well, first of all, you're exactly right about the blueprint to beat Michigan. They've got to play from the lead, and they've got to create big plays early. Now, they've got a great wide receiver on the outside, Quentin Johnston. He's an NFL guy. They've got a good NFL back in Kendre Miller. You know, like, they've got some pieces. There's no doubt. And one of the things that they do best is throw the ball down the field and create big plays, explosive pass plays. In fact, Duggan's third in the Power 5, Colin, when you look at passes that travel at least 20 yards or more, he completes 50% of those.
Wow.
That's third in the Power 5. He's got 18 touchdowns of passes that travel 20 or more yards. So if I'm TCU, I'm going out throwing haymakers because I've got to play from the lead, right? You've got to take away the terms of the game from Michigan and their line of scrimmage. So what you're saying now to the kind of the first point of your question, which was Duggan and maybe his future prospects. I covered him. I also covered Brock Purdy. There's a lot of similarities there.
Yes.
A lot of similarities. Now, Brock might be a bit of a more refined passer, but Duggan is a more gritty, do it with his legs style of guy, and both of them are very smart. They're probably a little undersized for the NFL. They're going to be overlooked, but they're great competitors, and they are the catalyst for teams overachieving at the college level. I thought Purdy was the catalyst, along with their running back, Breece Hall at Iowa State, and then Duggan, obviously, what he's done at TCU has been outstanding. But they remind me a lot of each other.
Yeah. I think Ohio State's going to score some points on Georgia. I don't think they'll beat them, but I think it's going to be, we don't see this much with Georgia, a little bit of a shootout. Teams in the high 20s, low 30s. I do. Your takeaway on Ohio State's offense against this vaunted Georgia defense?
Yeah, so the thing about Georgia's defense is that if you're a team that really needs to be balanced or really like needs the run game to jumpstart your team, they're just going to totally shut you down, right? Because Jalen Carter is too good, and that run defense is too good. Now, If you're a team that has the talent to win one-on-one matchups in the straight drop-back game, then you can move the ball on Georgia. And I think the evidence is clear of that, even in the last 2 years. In fact, when you look at the last 38 games that Georgia has played, I believe they've only lost 3 of them. And on only 4 of those games, they've given up over 400 yards of total offense. Well, they're 1-3 in those games. The latest to do that, by the way, was LSU. LSU just did something that we haven't seen in the Kirby Smart era. They had 10 pass plays of 20 or more yards, explosive pass plays. So if I'm looking at like, okay, I'm going to try to create a team that could give Georgia problems. I'm not saying they're going to win, but give them problems. I would say good NFL-style quarterback, really good intricate passing scheme, and players on the outside that can win. Oh, hello, Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Jamison Williams from last year at Alabama, or Mechie last year from Alabama in that SEC championship game. So for me, this is a matchup that at least Ohio State, they've got the pieces to go out there and play with Georgia and make this a game. And I firmly believe what you're talking about. I think Ohio State's going to be able to score a little bit.
Yeah.
The bigger question for me is how they perform in the red zone offensively, because that's where they struggled against Michigan. They were 1 of 4 scoring touchdowns in the red zone. And then how do they handle Stetson Bennett? Because this is the one thing that we don't talk about in this game, by the way. Colin, Stetson Bennett, in his last 5 games against top 15 teams, he's 72%, over 285 yards passing, 13 touchdowns, and no interceptions. They've got great tight ends, Brock Bowers being one of them. Can Ohio State stop them? I don't know. I don't know, especially after what we saw in their last game out against Michigan.
So, I see that. It doesn't bother me, but I totally get why this bothers sort of traditionalists. When you see a great player sitting out of a bowl game. Now, I've always said, if I was a running back and it's a second-tier bowl game, Leonard Fournette, Bijan Robinson, like, hey, man, we recruit 4 a year at this school. I've given you everything I've got. Beating Washington's not the end of the – I'm okay with some guys sitting out bowl games. Does it bother you?
No, I've when it first started happening, I think the first one that I was like, oh my gosh, a bit shocked was Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree that was kind of the first one of the trend? And but that was, if I'm not mistaken, that was a Sun Bowl. To your point, a running back, maybe not one of the premier bowls out there. I've kind of landed on this philosophy. I think it has to do with value. First and foremost, anybody that makes this decision, I won't begrudge them this decision. They've put themselves in this position and done enough to feel like they're making a decision for their future. So that's first. Secondly, just in terms of like, are they making the right decision or not? I've kind of landed on the players that really can't help themselves in their draft stock.
Yeah.
It's probably a good decision not to play. But there are guys that can make themselves a lot of money by putting out a great performance.
Right.
And, if you can help your draft stock, well, why wouldn't you play? I know it's a risk-reward proposition. So first things first, I do not begrudge anybody their decision. You make your decision and you move on. And that is what it is. But if you could still help your draft stock, I think that you might be making a poor financial decision at times if you're opting out.
I only have a minute left. I don't know if you noticed, USC was awesome this year. Oklahoma under 500. I just saw it on TV somewhere.
Yeah.
Is that thing going to work? Because I think Cliff Kingsbury is going to be available. Are you, if you're a Sooner fan, little concerned how clunky it was?
Yes, and there's also some reasons for optimism. Coming down the stretch, they played a lot of one-score games. They were 3-6 down the stretch, and that could have easily been a 9-3 season. And they recruited really well. I mean, very well. Getting Peyton Bowens, that safety is a big get. So I'm actually not concerned for Oklahoma moving forward. They're still Oklahoma. I think Brent Venables can get it done. And that was a great game, by the way, against Florida State. So I'm not concerned about OU. Okay, there we go. You're very positive. I like that during the holidays. A lot of negativity. Our airline industry is crashing, so not literally, but maybe their computer systems. So we need positive vibes here today. Joel Klatt, as always, my friend. You always look prepared. This guy rolls out of bed ready to talk college football. You look like the voice of college football. There we go.
It's good seeing you, my man.
I appreciate you. Happy New Year, bud.
All right, he has got a podcast.